Dr. Reed Wilson stared at the alien communication patterns scrolling across his screen, each message more puzzling than the last. Entire civilizations going silent without explanation, massive fleets abandoning perfectly habitable star systems, and technological signatures vanishing from sectors that had been thriving just weeks before. The research vessel, Horizon's Edge, drifted through the outer rim of the Andromeda sector, its sensors picking up the electromagnetic echoes of a galaxy. In constant retreat, Wilson had spent 3 years trying to understand why advanced alien species would suddenly evacuate their homeworlds, leaving behind cities, infrastructure, and sometimes even their young. His colleague, Dr. Sarah Kim, joined him at the monitoring station, her face showing the same confusion that had plagued their entire research team for months. Another mass exodus from the Vega cluster, she reported, pointing to the data stream showing hundreds of ships fleeing in all directions. That makes 17 sectors abandoned this month alone. Wilson pulled up the analysis software and began cross-referencing the evacuation patterns with astronomical data, looking for supernovas, gamma-ray bursts, or any natural phenomenon that might explain such coordinated fear. The results showed nothing. No stellar events, no radiation spikes, no gravitational anomalies that would threaten entire civilizations. Look at this communication we intercepted. From the Luminari, Kim said, displaying a translated message on her screen. The ethereal beings were broadcasting urgent warnings about something they called the Great Devourers, describing creatures of immense size and hunger that swept through star systems like a plague. Wilson leaned forward, studying the description. The Luminari spoke of beasts with impenetrable shells, razor-sharp mandibles that could slice through starship hulls, and an insatiable appetite for sentient flesh. Each creature was described as being the size of a small moon, capable of surviving in the vacuum of space and hunting across multiple star systems. They're talking about predators, Wilson murmured, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. The entire galaxy is running from predators. The next few hours brought a flood of similar messages as Wilson and Kim hacked into communication networks across dozens of species. The Stoneheart Collective had developed elaborate underground bunker systems spanning entire continents, sealing themselves away whenever the Void Hunters approached their worlds. The Drift Swimmers had perfected technology that could phase their entire civilization out of normal space-time, hiding in dimensional pockets until the danger passed. Every species had the same response to these creatures: hide, run, disappear, and pray. The predators would move on to easier prey. Wilson found records of civilizations that had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of becoming invisible, developing cloaking technologies, psionic dampeners, and even genetic modifications that would make them less appealing to the hunters. This is impossible, Kim said, studying footage of what appeared to be one of these devourers. The creature was indeed massive, its chitinous exoskeleton gleaming in the light of a distant star as it moved through space with surprising grace. Look at the size of that thing. It's bigger than our entire ship. Wilson watched the creature's movements, noting how it seemed to track something through space, following electromagnetic signatures and chemical trails like a bloodhound following a scent. The beast moved with purpose, intelligence, and a confidence that came from being the apex predator in every environment it encountered. But look at the response, Wilson pointed out, showing Kim the tactical data from various alien encounters. Every single species does the same thing. Hey, they run. No one fights back, and no one even tries to find weaknesses or develop countermeasures. The pattern was consistent across hundreds of different species with vastly different evolutionary backgrounds. The crystalline facet builders shattered themselves into component parts and scattered across multiple star systems. The gaseous, nebula shapers dispersed their consciousness into interstellar clouds. The mechanical forge minds simply shut down all their systems and went dormant for decades at a time. It's like they've evolved to be prey, Kim observed, her voice filled with wonder and horror. Every single one of them has developed elaborate flight responses instead of fight responses. Wilson began pulling up Earth's historical data, comparing human responses to apex predators. Throughout their evolutionary history, The contrast was striking. When early humans encountered cave bears, they didn't build elaborate hiding systems. They crafted spears. When they faced mammoths, they didn't develop cloaking technology. They dug pit traps. When they encountered saber-toothed cats, they didn't phase out of reality. They made fire and hunted in packs. "Sarah, look at this," Wilson said, displaying comparative behavioral data. "Every species in this galaxy has the same response to apex predators: flee and hide. But humans have always had a different approach." The data showed Earth's unique evolutionary pressure. Unlike most worlds where intelligence evolved primarily as a tool for cooperation or resource management, human intelligence had been forged in the crucible of predator-prey relationships, where they were never the strongest, fastest, or most dangerous creatures in their environment. "We learned to make tools because we had to," Wilson continued, his excitement growing. "We developed complex planning because we needed to outsmart things that were bigger and stronger than us. We mastered fire because we needed every advantage we could get." Kim stared at the alien evacuation patterns, then at Earth's hunting traditions, and slowly began to understand what Wilson was suggesting. "You think humans might respond differently to these devourers? I think humans might be the only species in this galaxy that doesn't automatically assume some predators are too dangerous to fight," Wilson replied. "Look at our history. We hunted megafauna to extinction. We drove apex predators from every continent. We turned the most dangerous environments on Earth into our hunting grounds." The implications were staggering. If the galaxy's response to apex predators was universal flight, then humanity represented something entirely new. A species that had evolved not just intelligence, but the specific type of intelligence needed to hunt creatures more powerful than themselves. "We need to report this to the captain," Kim said, but Wilson was already compiling his findings into a comprehensive report. The document painted a picture of a galaxy living in fear, of countless civilizations that had never learned to fight back, and of a single species that might hold the key to changing everything. As the horizon's edge continued its journey through space, monitoring the endless stream of evacuation signals and distress calls, Wilson couldn't shake the feeling that humanity was about to discover something profound about itself. The galaxy was full of prey species, all running from the same predators, all convinced that survival meant hiding. But humans had never been very good at hiding. They had always preferred to hunt. The distress signal reached the horizon's edge, just as Dr. Wilson finished his report on galactic predator-prey dynamics. Chief Communications Officer Lisa Wong intercepted the transmission from a luminary research station in the Kepler system, her face pale as she decoded the urgent plea for help. "Captain Foster, you need to hear this," Wong announced over the ship's intercom. The message played through the bridge speakers, filled with harmonics that conveyed pure terror even through the translation matrix. The luminary station was under attack by 3 adult devourers, their research fleet trapped in an asteroid field with no escape route. Captain Anna Foster studied the tactical display showing the Kepler system, noting the distances involved and the time required to reach the endangered station. Standard galactic protocol dictated immediate withdrawal from any sector where devourers were active, but Foster had never been one to follow standard protocols when lives were at stake. "How long until we reach them?" she asked Navigation Officer Pete Davis, who was already plotting courses and calculating burn times. 18 hours at maximum acceleration, Davis replied. "But Captain, the luminary emergency broadcasts are advising all ships to evacuate. The entire sector. They're not asking for rescue, they're warning everyone to stay away." Foster turned to Dr. Wilson, who had arrived on the bridge with his research files still clutched in his hands. "Doctor, based on your analysis, what do you think our chances would be against these creatures?" Wilson looked at the tactical data showing the 3 devourers, circling the trapped luminary vessels like sharks around wounded prey. Each creature was roughly the size of a cruiser, with thick chitinous armor and mandibles capable of shearing through starship hulls. By every logical measure, the horizon's edge would be hopelessly outmatched. "According to galactic records, our chances would be 0, Wilson admitted. "Every species that has encountered these creatures either dies or flees. There are no recorded cases of successful resistance." But, Foster prompted, sensing there was more to his assessment. But every species in this galaxy has the same response pattern. They panic, they run, they hide, Wilson continued. No one has ever tried to study these creatures as potential prey, instead of inevitable predators. No one has ever approached them as hunters. Chief Engineer Paul Smith had been listening from his station, and now he stepped forward with the practical mindset that had kept the horizon's edge running through 3 years of deep space exploration. Captain, our manufacturing bay could be converted to produce weapons. We have tungsten reserves for hull repairs, electromagnetic field generators for maintenance, and enough raw materials to fabricate whatever we need. Foster felt something stirring in her chest, a feeling she recognized from her early days exploring dangerous star systems and uncharted worlds. It wasn't fear or recklessness, but the calculated excitement of a predator sizing up potential prey. What kind of weapons are we talking about? Smith pulled up schematics on his portable display, designs that seemed to blend cutting-edge technology with primitive concepts. Tungsten-tipped projectiles with magnetic acceleration, essentially javelins that can punch through heavy armor, electromagnetic nets that can entangle and immobilize targets, and plasma charges that burn hot enough to damage even thick carapaces. You're talking about hunting equipment, Wilson observed, recognizing the patterns from Earth's evolutionary history. Spears for penetrating thick hides, snares for controlling movement, and fire for weakening defenses. The bridge crew exchanged glances, and Foster could see the same realization dawning on each face. They weren't discussing a rescue mission anymore. They were planning a hunt. Lisa, open a channel to Earth Command, Foster ordered. We need to report our intentions and request any relevant data on human hunting methodologies. Wong established the connection, and within minutes they were speaking with Admiral Roberts, whose weathered face showed surprise at their request. Captain Foster, are you seriously proposing to engage these creatures that have the entire galaxy running scared? Admiral, Dr. Wilson's research suggests that the galaxy's fear response might be cultural rather than tactical, Foster explained. Every species runs because that's what every species has always done, but humans evolved differently. We evolved to hunt things bigger and stronger than ourselves. Roberts was quiet for a long moment, considering the implications. Captain, if you're wrong about this, you'll be leading your crew to certain death. But if you're right, you might be solving a problem that has terrorized this galaxy for millions of years. Understood, Admiral. We'll proceed with caution, but we will proceed. Smith was already coordinating with the engineering teams, turning the ship's manufacturing facilities into a weapons forge. The industrial fabricators hummed to life, producing tungsten projectiles with molecular sharp points and electromagnetic coils designed to accelerate them to devastating velocities. The smell of hot metal and ozone filled the engineering sections as the crew worked with focused intensity. Dr. Wilson established a research station on the bridge, studying every available data point about devourer anatomy and behavior. The creatures hunted by scent and electromagnetic signature, tracking their prey across vast distances. They were intelligent, but their intelligence seemed focused entirely on predation rather than defense. Most importantly, they had never faced organized resistance. Their armor is thickest at the front and along the dorsal ridge, Wilson reported. But the joint connections show flexibility, which means potential weak points. And they seem to rely on intimidation, as much as physical prowess. They expect their prey to flee. The crew of the Horizon's Edge spent the journey to Kepler system, preparing for something no human had ever attempted, a coordinated hunt of an apex predator in the depths of space. The ship's corridors filled with the sounds of weapon testing, tactical discussions, and the steady confidence of humans doing what they had always done best, turning disadvantages into advantages through tool use and cooperation. As they approached the system, the luminary distress signals grew stronger, punctuated by the massive electromagnetic signatures of the devourers themselves. The creatures were still circling their trapped prey, apparently in no hurry to finish their hunt. They had all the time in the universe, and they knew their prey had nowhere to run. Captain Foster stood on the bridge, watching the tactical display as they approached the asteroid field where the drama was unfolding. Her crew was armed with weapons that would have been familiar to their ancestors: projectiles, snares, and fire, but adapted for warfare. Among the stars, all stations report ready, Smith announced from his engineering post. Weapons systems online, reported Weapons Officer Mike Torres. Tactical analysis complete, Wilson added, from his research station. Foster looked at each member of her crew, seeing the same determined expression on every face. They weren't approaching as prey hoping to rescue other prey. They were approaching as predators preparing to challenge the apex hunters of the galaxy. "Take us in," she ordered. "Time to show these creatures what happens when they encounter something that hunts back." The Kepler asteroid field stretched before them like a three-dimensional maze of rock and ice, with the trapped luminary vessels glowing like distant stars among the debris. Three massive shapes moved through the field with predatory grace, each devourer easily 10 times the size of the horizon's edge, their chitinous shells reflecting the light of the system's binary stars. Dr. Wilson monitored the creatures' movement patterns from his tactical station, noting how they maintained perfect formation while herding their prey deeper into the asteroid field. "They're not just hunting," he observed. "They're playing with their food, corralling the luminary ships to prevent any chance of escape." Captain Foster watched the display with the eyes of a hunter studying her quarry. The devourers moved with confidence born of millions of years as apex predators, never expecting resistance, never watching their flanks. "That's their first mistake," she murmured. Chief Engineer Smith had positioned himself at the weapons control station, his hands steady on the targeting systems despite the magnitude of what they were about to attempt. "Tungsten javelins loaded and ready," he reported. "Electromagnetic snares charged to full capacity." The first devourer was the largest, its armored carapace scarred from countless hunts across the galaxy. It moved between two massive asteroids, using them to funnel a luminary cruiser toward its waiting mandibles. The alien vessel tried desperately to change course, but the creature had calculated every possible escape route. "That one first," Foster decided. "We use the asteroids for cover, just like our ancestors used trees and rocks." The horizon's edge slipped through the asteroid field like a shadow, using the gravitational fields and electromagnetic interference to mask their approach. Wilson had calculated the optimal firing positions, accounting for the creature's armor thickness and joint vulnerabilities. "Remember, we're not trying to destroy it with brute force," Wilson advised over the comm system. "We're hunting. We wound it, we slow it down. We use tools and tactics to overcome superior size and strength." The first javelin struck the devourer's rear joint with surgical precision, the tungsten tip punching through the flexible connection between carapace plates. The creature's roar shattered nearby asteroids, a sound that had terrorized the galaxy for eons. But instead of fleeing like every other species, the humans pressed their attack. Smith triggered the electromagnetic snares, powerful field generators that wrapped around the wounded creature's limbs like invisible chains. The devourer thrashed violently, trying to break free, but the humans had studied the physics of entanglement. Each struggle only tightened the electromagnetic bonds. "Plasma charges, full spread," Foster ordered. The darkness of space exploded with artificial fire as dozens of plasma charges detonated around the trapped devourer. The superheated gas burned at temperatures approaching stellar cores, eating away at the creature's armor and overwhelming its regenerative capabilities. This wasn't random violence. It was controlled application of humanity's oldest weapon. The first devourer died as it had lived, as an apex predator. But for the first time in galactic history, it died as prey. The second creature abandoned its hunt of the luminary ships and turned toward the horizon's edge with newfound respect for its opponents. This devourer was faster, more cautious, using the asteroid field's natural cover to mask its approach, but Wilson had anticipated this response. "It's trying to ambush us," he reported, "but it's thinking like a predator, not like prey. It doesn't know how to hide from hunters." The humans had spent 3 years mapping asteroid fields, using them as navigation hazards and resource sources. They knew how to read gravitational eddies, how to predict debris patterns, how to turn chaotic environments into hunting grounds. The Devourer's stealth approach was visible to creatures who had evolved to track subtle signs through hostile terrain. Smith launched a spread of javelins, not at the creature, but at the asteroids around it. The tungsten projectiles shattered the rocky bodies, creating a debris cloud that revealed the Devourer's position through gravitational displacement. Suddenly exposed, the creature found itself facing a coordinated barrage of electromagnetic snares and plasma charges. Pack hunting, Wilson observed with satisfaction. It's never faced coordinated tactics before. The second Devourer lasted longer than the first, its superior speed and caution extending the engagement. But human persistence was legendary throughout Earth's evolutionary history. They had brought down mammoths through coordinated exhaustion tactics, worn down apex predators through relentless pressure. The creature's advantages meant nothing against opponents who never stopped adapting their approach. The third and largest Devourer had been watching the destruction of its packmates with what might have been learning. When it finally engaged, the horizon's edge, it displayed tactics no human had seen in the alien records. Rapid direction changes, use of asteroid cover, even attempts to lure the human ship into vulnerable positions. It's adapting, Foster realized. This one is learning from our techniques, but human adaptability was faster. Wilson adjusted their targeting algorithms in real time. Smith modified the javelin trajectories to account for the creature's evasive maneuvers, and Foster began using the Devourer's own tactics against it. When the creature tried to ambush them from behind an asteroid, she led it directly into a pre-positioned field of plasma charges. The final engagement lasted nearly an hour, a deadly dance among the asteroids between the galaxy's former apex predators and their human replacements. The Devourer fought with the desperation of a creature that had never known defeat, while the humans fought with the calculated persistence of persistence hunters who had brought down every major predator on their homeworld. When the last Devourer finally went still, its massive form drifting among the shattered asteroids like a dark monument to the changing of ages, the silence was profound. The luminary vessels emerged from their hiding places, broadcasting messages of gratitude and disbelief in equal measure. Dr. Wilson studied the remains of the three creatures, noting the precision of their wounds and the efficiency of human hunting tactics. Every species in this galaxy developed elaborate ways to avoid these predators, he reflected, but avoiding them meant never learning their weaknesses. The Luminary Fleet Commander established communication with the horizon's edge, his translated words carrying harmonics of religious awe. "You have achieved the impossible," he transmitted. "You have slain the Devourers. You have proven that the great hunters can themselves be hunted." Captain Foster looked at the tactical display showing the aftermath of their hunt. 3 apex predators dead, their own ship barely damaged, and an entire region of space now free from terror that had lasted for geological ages. "Send a message to Earth Command," she ordered. "Tell them we've confirmed Dr. Wilson's hypothesis. The galaxy's apex predators can be hunted." As news of the battle spread through the galactic communication networks, reactions varied wildly. Some species celebrated the liberation from their ancient fears, while others began asking new questions about the creatures who could hunt the hunters. The humans of the horizon's edge prepared for the journey home, their ship now loaded with samples and data that would revolutionize galactic understanding of predator-prey relationships. They had proven that with the right tools, tactics, and mindset, no predator was beyond the reach of determined hunters behind them. The asteroid field drifted in space, forever changed by the presence of creatures who refused to run when challenged by superior size and strength. The age of the Devourers was ending, and the age of human hunters had begun. News of the Devourer hunt spread through the galactic networks faster than light itself, carried by quantum communicators and psionic broadcasts across thousands of worlds. Within days of the Kepler system battle, every major civilization was analyzing footage of the impossible. 3 apex predators floating dead among the asteroids, killed not by some cosmic catastrophe but by deliberate hunting. Admiral Roberts reviewed the situation reports flooding into Earth Command, each one more extraordinary than the last. The Luminary had declared the crew of the Horizon's Edge to be divine warriors, constructing shrines in their honor and offering territorial tributes. The Stoneheart Collective was requesting immediate trade negotiations for human weapon designs. Meanwhile, the drift swimmers had gone completely silent, their entire civilization retreating into dimensional hiding. "The galaxy doesn't know what to make of us," Roberts told his assembled staff officers. "Half the species want to worship us as savior gods, and the other half are terrified we might decide to hunt them next." Captain Foster found herself fielding communications requests from dozens of star systems, each one desperate for human protection against remaining devourer populations. The messages came with offers of technology, resources, territorial concessions, and in some cases complete planetary subjugation. Species that had never bowed to anyone were offering unconditional surrender to creatures they had never met. Dr. Wilson studied the psychological profiles of various alien species, trying to understand their responses to humanity's emergence as apex hunters. "They've spent millions of years evolving cultures based on hiding from superior predators," he explained to Foster during one of their daily briefings. "Their entire philosophical frameworks assume that some challenges cannot be overcome through direct confrontation." The research data painted a fascinating picture of galactic evolution. Every major species had developed elaborate social structures designed around the concept of collective hiding. Their governments were built for rapid evacuation decisions. Their religions centered on appeasement of superior forces. Their technologies focused on concealment and flight rather than warfare. "Look at the Luminary response," Wilson continued, displaying their latest transmissions. "They're not just grateful for rescue, they're experiencing something approaching. Religious revelation, the idea that apex predators can be killed rather than avoided, is fundamentally changing their understanding of reality." More human ships were arriving in the sector daily, drawn by reports of the successful hunt and eager to test themselves against the galaxy's most feared predators. The cargo vessel New Horizon had converted its storage bays into weapons manufacturing, while the research ship Deep Explorer was tracking devourer migration patterns across multiple star systems. Chief Smith coordinated with the new arrivals, sharing weapon designs and hunting tactics developed during the Kepler engagement. The humans were rapidly evolving their approach, creating increasingly sophisticated tools for apex predator hunting. Guided harpoons that could track targets through hyperspace, gravity snares that used stellar mass as crushing force, fusion charges that burned with the intensity of miniature stars. "We're becoming specialists," Smith observed, watching teams of engineers adapt mining equipment into hunting tools. "Every ship that arrives brings new ideas for taking down large predators. It's like watching our ancestors develop better spear points and trap designs." The systematic hunting of devourer populations began across 17 star systems simultaneously. Human crews worked in coordinated packs, using communication networks to share real-time tactical data and coordinate hunts across vast distances. They tracked breeding patterns, identified territorial behaviors, and began mapping the complex ecosystem that had kept the galaxy in terror. Dr. Wilson's expanded research revealed the true scope of devourer influence on galactic development. These creatures had been the dominant species for so long that every other form of life had evolved specifically to avoid them. Trade routes followed paths that minimized contact with hunting grounds. Entire civilizations had developed around the principle of being unnoticed by superior predators. The devourers shaped this galaxy's evolution more than any environmental factor, Wilson reported to Earth Command. Every major species, every technological development, every social structure has been influenced by the need to hide from these creatures. Humanity represents the first species to approach them as equals rather than inevitable superiors. The alien reactions became more complex as human hunting expeditions eliminated devourer populations from system after system. The crystalline facet builders began emerging from their scattered hiding places, cautiously exploring regions of space that had been forbidden for millennia. Ancient trade networks reopened as species realized the ancient hunting grounds were now safe. But safety came with a price. Every species now understood that humans occupied the apex position formerly held by the devourers. The footage of human hunting tactics was studied obsessively across the galaxy, not just as entertainment, but as intelligence gathering. If humans could systematically eliminate creatures that had dominated the galaxy for millions of years, what did that make humanity in the cosmic food chain? Communications Officer Wong intercepted increasingly worried transmissions between various alien governments. Private channels buzzed with questions about human intentions, human capabilities, human territorial ambitions. Some species were developing contingency plans for what they called the human expansion phase. "They're afraid of us," Foster realized as she reviewed the diplomatic communications. "We saved them from their greatest fear, and now they're afraid we might become their new greatest fear." The irony wasn't lost on Wilson. Humanity had approached the Devourers as a scientific problem to be solved through tool use and cooperative hunting. But the rest of the galaxy saw something far more ominous: the emergence of a new apex predator species with technology, intelligence, and most terrifyingly, the willingness to hunt anything they encountered. Captain Foster stood on the observation deck of the Horizon's Edge, now serving as flagship for a growing fleet of human hunting vessels. Through the viewport she could see other ships, converted cargo haulers bristling with harpoon launchers, research vessels equipped with tracking arrays, even civilian craft that had volunteered to join the expanding hunt. The transformation was remarkable. Within months of the first Devourer kill, humanity had evolved from unknown newcomers to the galaxy's acknowledged apex hunters. Their weapons had progressed from crude tungsten javelins to sophisticated multi-dimensional tracking systems. Their tactics had developed from simple pack hunting to galaxy-spanning coordination networks. But the most profound change was philosophical. Where other species had developed cultures of submission and avoidance, humans had introduced concepts of active problem-solving, direct confrontation, and the fundamental belief that no challenge was insurmountable with the right tools and tactics. As Foster watched the fleet prepare for the next hunting expedition, she wondered if the galaxy's fears about humanity were justified. They had proven they could eliminate any predator through persistence, tool use, and cooperative hunting. The same traits that had made them successful devourer hunters would make them formidable opponents for any species that chose to challenge them. The galaxy was learning what Earth's ecosystem had discovered millions of years ago. The most dangerous predator wasn't necessarily the largest or strongest, but the one that refused to accept defeat and kept developing better tools until victory became inevitable. 6 months after the first Devourer fell in the Kepler asteroid field, the galaxy had transformed into something unrecognizable. Ancient trade routes that had been abandoned for millennia now bustled with commerce as species cautiously emerged from their hiding places. The great evacuation fleets were returning home, but they maintained careful distances from the growing human presence. Commander Lisa Wong monitored the deep space communications from her new post aboard the flagship Apex Hunter, a purpose-built vessel designed specifically for hunting the galaxy's remaining apex predators. The ship bristled with weapons that would have seemed magical to their ancestors: quantum harpoons that could track prey through dimensional shifts, gravitational snares that could crush targets using the mass of nearby planets, and fusion flames that burned hotter than the cores of young stars. Another devourer population eliminated in the Orion sector, reported Tactical Officer David Kim. That makes 43 confirmed kills this month. The hunting fleets are reporting that the remaining populations are fleeing toward the galactic rim. The systematic extermination had been more thorough than anyone had expected. Humanity's approach to apex predator control combined their ancestral persistence hunting instincts with industrial-scale organization. They tracked breeding cycles, mapped territorial ranges, and coordinated hunts across multiple star systems simultaneously. Dr. Wilson, now serving as chief xenobiologist for the Human Hunting Corps, compiled his final reports on devourer behavioral patterns. The remaining populations show classic flight responses, he noted. They've abandoned their traditional hunting grounds and are retreating to the least hospitable regions of the galaxy. For the first time in their evolutionary history, they're the ones running. Captain Foster reviewed the tactical displays showing human fleet positions throughout the galaxy. What had started as a single research vessel had evolved into the most feared hunting force in galactic history. Converted merchant ships, retrofitted exploration vessels, and purpose-built hunters patrolled sectors that had been no-go zones for millions of years. The alien species watched this transformation with mixed emotions. The Luminari continued their worship of human hunters, building elaborate temples and offering tributes to the god-slayers who had freed them from ancient terror. But other species asked harder questions about what happened when the galaxy's most persistent hunters ran out of apex predators to kill. The Stoneheart Collective is requesting a formal non-aggression pact, Wong reported from her communication station. They're offering full territorial concessions and technology sharing in exchange for assurance that we won't hunt them. Foster studied the diplomatic proposals flooding their communication systems. Species that had never negotiated from positions of weakness were offering everything they possessed in exchange for human protection or human promises not to turn their hunting instincts on former allies. The psychological impact extended beyond simple fear. Entire civilizations were restructuring their societies around the new reality of human apex dominance. The drift swimmers had abandoned their traditional dimensional hiding techniques and were developing new technologies designed to detect and appease human hunters. The crystalline facet builders were sharing their most guarded secrets in hopes of earning human favor. They're trying to become useful to us, Wilson observed. The same way remora fish attach to sharks or the way small birds clean crocodiles. They want to establish symbiotic relationships rather than risk being seen as competitors. The transformation wasn't limited to alien species. Humanity itself was evolving in response to their new role as galactic apex hunters. The crews of hunting vessels developed ritualistic behaviors around successful kills, marking their ships with tallies and trophies. Training programs emerged on Earth to prepare new generations of hunters for deep space predator elimination. Chief Engineer Paul Smith, now directing weapons development for the entire human fleet, marveled at the rapid technological advancement. We've gone from tungsten javelins to quantum tracking systems in 6 months, he reported to Admiral Roberts during a fleet-wide conference. Our hunting efficiency is improving exponentially. The weapons had evolved far beyond their primitive origins while maintaining the same fundamental concepts. Modern harpoons could track prey through multiple dimensions, following quantum signatures across impossible distances. Advanced snares used gravitational manipulation to immobilize targets the size of space stations. Fusion fire burned with controlled precision, weakening armor without destroying valuable research specimens. But the most significant evolution was strategic. Human hunters had developed galaxy-spanning coordination networks that allowed them to track and eliminate entire species with industrial efficiency. They shared real-time data across thousands of light-years, coordinated simultaneous attacks on multiple fronts, and maintained detailed databases of every apex predator in known space. The few remaining devourer populations had been driven to the galaxy's edge, forced into regions so hostile that even their remarkable adaptations struggled to survive. Some had retreated into the space between galaxies, abandoning their traditional hunting grounds entirely. Others had gone dormant, hoping to wait out what they couldn't understand. Dr. Wilson's final xenobiological report painted a comprehensive picture of what humanity had accomplished. We have successfully reversed millions of years of galactic ecosystem evolution, he concluded. The apex predators that shaped this galaxy's development have been eliminated or driven into exile. Humanity now occupies the dominant position in every major star system. Captain Foster stood on the observation deck of the Apex Hunter, watching as alien vessels maintained respectful distances from the human fleet. The ships that approached did so with careful protocols, broadcasting friendship signals and tribute offerings. No one challenged human authority anymore. No one even suggested it was possible. The galaxy had learned to recognize the signs of human presence, the distinctive energy signatures of their weapons, the coordinated movement patterns of their hunting fleets, the quantum disturbances left by their advanced tracking systems. These signals had become the new universal language of Apex Dominant Status Report from all sectors. Foster requested from her command staff, Sector Alpha 7, Devourer population eliminated, Kim reported. Sector Beta 3. Remaining predators driven beyond the galactic rim, Wong added. Sector Gamma 9. Complete ecosystem pacification achieved, Wilson concluded. The reports continued across hundreds of star systems, each one confirming the same transformation. The galaxy's apex predators had been systematically eliminated, driven away, or reduced to harmless populations in remote regions. Humanity had accomplished in months what millions of years of evolution had failed to achieve: the complete domination of galactic predator hierarchies. As Foster reviewed the comprehensive data, she realized they had fundamentally altered the trajectory of galactic evolution. Future civilizations would develop in a universe where the ultimate apex predator was not some mindless beast driven by hunger, but an intelligent species armed with tools, tactics, and the absolute conviction that no challenge was insurmountable. The alien species were already adapting to this new reality. Their children would grow up in a galaxy where the greatest predators were creatures that crafted javelins from starship hulls, wove snares from electromagnetic fields, and kindled fires that burned between the stars. The universe belonged to hunters who had never learned to run from anything, and who approached every problem with the same question their ancestors had asked when facing cave bears and mammoths. The galaxy now knew what Earth had learned millions of years ago. When humans encounter apex predators, they don't hide, they don't flee, and they don't pray for salvation. They craft better weapons, develop more effective tactics, and hunt until the predators become the prey.